Hello, listeners. Been wondering how you can help the show? Probably not. But here are 5 things you can do. 1. Subscribe. Support the show by clicking the subscription link in the show notes. 2. Review on iTunes, on our website, www.afraidofnothingpodcast.com, or on whatever app you listen to. 3. Donate. When you go to our website, click the cute coffee cup icon. Or in the show notes, click the subscription link. 4. Share. Sharing really is caring. Tell your friends and even your enemies to check out the show. 5. Watch. Wait a minute, it's a podcast, not a movie. Actually, it's both. Check the show notes to find out where to watch the documentary. You can also rent it on Prime Video. That's it. Oh, one last thing. Enjoy this episode.
Feeling down and, well, not just right. I get it. The world's been a tough place the past several years. And, listening to the news, it doesn't look like it's going to get any better. But one thing can change your situation. Your mind. And that's what this episode is all about, as I explore a recent life activation that I had with one of our favorite guests, Andy Grant. Sad. Somber piano music from Zapsplat.com.
In a world where nothing is known, nothing is certain, reality is not real. Wake up! Be afraid of nothing. I'm Bob Heskey.
Robert.
The host with the ghost.
This is my podcast, based on my paranormal documentary, Afraid of Nothing. Each episode, we talk to people who see life and the afterlife through a different lens. Join me.
Who is this large man? And what's he doing in our bedroom?
As we lift the veil and open our minds to see beyond our eyes lie. This is Afraid of Nothing.
Wow, we are back with a favorite guest. We have Andy Grant here. Andy, welcome to the show.
Hey, Bob. Great to be here.
Great to see you again, man. I saw you a couple of weeks ago, and we're going to cover that in this podcast. But first, typically I read the bio before introducing a guest, but in this case, I think you're best qualified to introduce yourself. So why don't you tell our listeners, who is Andy Grant?
Well, he is me. There, I'm done.
Oh, good. That was quick.
No, so I am an author, a speaker, a teacher, a healer. I'm a husband, a world traveler, a children's book author. I'm a life activation practitioner and a ritual master with the Modern Mystery School. I'm a seeker. I'm a chameleon.
I think the one thing you got was a filmmaker too, right? You're a filmmaker.
Yeah, filmmaker, screenwriter. I'm an actor. It really, I do. When I list everything I do, people get like intimidated or think I'm like making some of it up. But I have lots of interests, and I believe in pursuing my interests. So I do.
Yeah, no, you definitely do. So let's go back a little bit. So you started doing Akashic record readings in 2011. There was one show about in 2020 where you did an Akashic reading for me, which was really great.
Mm-hmm.
So do you mind just telling one of your early skills? What are the Akashic records, and how were you able to tune into it? And better yet, how were you able to help this skill to help your clients?
Even before that, I was trained to be an energy coach in 2010. So that's when I really discovered that I was naturally empathic, and energy could be, read and perceived and described. And I had a rather natural skill set with that. The Akashic records were something I'd always heard of. And then I think it was like 2013, I was teaching a workshop at a place in Pembroke, Massachusetts, and I saw that someone was coming to teach the Akashic Records the next day, and I was like, oh, I'm going to stick around and take this finally. So it was just serendipitous that I was in the right place at the right time to learn how to do it. The Akashic Records are, it's kind of like the quantum field. Akasha is a Sanskrit word. It means primary substance. So it's kind of like where everything's possible. It's where thoughts become things. It's pre-manifestation. And the Akashic Records are a vibrational recording of your soul's journey.
Wow.
Everything you've ever done, it's like the Library of Congress for Bob. And everyone has their own Library of Congress.
Wow, that's great. Jeez, that's the best definition I've ever heard. Excellent. Sorry to interrupt you.
A lot of people think that each night you go to sleep, that day is uploaded into the records. So the records are alive and they're always being updated and maintained. And if we can get the information from the records, it often helps you having everything you've ever done be in one place. It can help you make good decisions about what to do next. So it's not really a fortune-telling device. It's not about, oh, the records say you should be doing this in 10 years and, you've done something wrong by not being here yet. It's not really about a race or, a game board. It's to help you make decisions. It's always empowering information that comes from the records. I've never had an experience where something was shared, somehow shattered or landed badly for somebody. It's always uplifting. It's always positive. But the first time I opened my records and had a visual experience of these doors opening and seeing this ancient library kind of metaphor visualized in my mind, I just got this message like, welcome, Andy. You've been here many times. You just didn't know it. And now you know like how to intentionally get here. And that's what I like about the records. It's, you can just have insights and aha moments and connections to God and angels and not be sure. But there's a process to open the records, get information, and then close the records. And that's why I really like that as a tool.
Do you still use that much?
Not as much. I've definitely have shifted as I got involved with the Modern Mystery School and became a healer and a life activation practitioner. All the healings of the Mystery School must be done in person. And the Akasha Records I could do for anyone. So I've had clients around the world. I'm leaving that behind me a bit and focusing more on these in-person healings. One thing I got from my own records is people can tend to rely on the records too much. And the records really, and everything, like God, your angels, want to remind humans of your free will. Everything's about empowerment. But too many people are kind of afraid to make their own decisions, so they look outside to the tarot cards or to an Akashic reading or to a psychic, and they do things because someone else said this is in your best interest. So I'm leaning away from that more and more. Clients that have been using it for years and ongoing, I'll still do sessions, but it's not something I'm promoting as much as I once did.
The last question on that before we segue to the Modern Mystery School and life activations. When you enter the Akashic Records, is it more of a visual or an auditory or both experience?
When I first started, it was very much an auditory experience. The energy coaching program that I mentioned earlier, that was very visual. I could really see energy with my eyes closed. And the record's very different because I often felt like I was surrounded by a circle of beings all saying the same thing. It was like listening to a chorus of information.
Yeah.
Over the years, it's become more blurred. And I'll see things, I'll just know things, I'll hear things. But at the beginning, it was very auditory. And again, I appreciated that because they were giving me, we're going to use a different sense so you know that this is different.
It's funny, about a couple months ago, I was going through depression, actually, and I remembered your reading, and I went back and I listened to it, and I sent you a note about that. It was very well done. I was very surprised you did it on the fly. We're like, okay, let's do this, and we did it, and then it was really good. I was glad to actually have a record of it because a lot of times I think you forget what you say during these readings. Correct?
Oh yeah, I do quickly. I'm in your records, and somebody else's records, and I'm just translating information. I'm just repeating what I get. So it's not coming from me. It's not something I remember. Usually when I close the records, if you ask me something the next day, what did this mean when you said this? Like, I said that? I have no idea. That's the usual experience.
That's funny. Yeah, a lot of actually psychics and mediums say the same thing. They go through so many people, Yeah. So I don't know if I'm going to have this year right. I'm assuming it's around 2016, but I think that's roughly when you kind of came upon the Modern Mystery School.
Correct.
And did you have your first life activation first and then you encountered the Modern Mystery School, or what was the order of that?
Yeah, it was like I love trying new things. So if I meet someone that has some energetic process or a healing, and so I had met someone at like a local networking event, might have been the Chamber of Commerce, something really I wouldn't think of like an energy place for people, but yeah, someone said I should meet somebody else, and I had good energy, and they had good energy, and we would get along well. And that person was a life activation practitioner. I later learned that she was initiated into the Modern Mystery School, but I never heard of it at that point. I was just like, oh, I'll try this life activation. Sure. Yeah, it was January of 2016. And I still remember it. So during mine, I remember thinking, I still don't know what this is, but I know I'm going to learn how to do this very clearly.
Did it affect you? Because we're going to go over mine in a minute, but did it affect you while you were getting the life activation, or did you get more of an impact
Ooh.
afterwards?
Well, the impact really never stopped. So it was insights and ahas. So again, there was that realization that I'm going to learn to do this. Real Men Feel, my podcast, was created a month after my life activation. During the activation before it, I had this inkling that I need to do something for men. That's all I knew. So that developed.
Yeah.
And because the life activation, it's hard to explain, I didn't really get it. In the parking lot, before I got it, I decided to do a video. So I did this 5-minute video, about to try this new thing, whatever. And then I did a video after it. And this before and after video, I'd never done that before, but it became kind of a thing I did for other future healings and things I've gone through. So it's 3 things right off the bat during it became part of my standard procedure going forward. And then over the coming weeks and months, and as I told you, that the life activation, it's not about how relaxed or cool or energized you might feel when you receive it that day. It's about the weeks, the months, even the years as your life unfolds. It really is, as the name implies, your life is activated. It's more energized. What you want to do is easier to notice. And it's like lighting a candle at both ends. You're activated in all the things you're meant to do, your path, your skills, your innate knowledge, your mystical wisdom, that's lit at the other end. And your 2 moths meeting each other. You're attracted to each other's flame. What you want to do and what wants to be done become easier to come into sync.
No, that's excellent. I think before we go into the actual life activation that I went through, give us some background about the Modern Mystery School and how you first got into that and process, what you can say anyways for your trainings and where you are today with that.
So I had heard of mystery schools. I think it might have been from like watching In Search of as a kid, but I'd heard that term. And there were always 7 ancient mystery schools on the planet. That's as much as I knew. I didn't think they still existed, but I come to find out that they did. So the Modern Mystery School goes all the way back to King Solomon, son of David, king of the Jews. He created this massive healing temple, and he foresaw the need for this knowledge, all the shamanic work, all the healing work, that humanity would need this somehow documented and collected. So for 30 years, in the temple of King Solomon, different teachers and healers from around the world gathered, and they taught each other these things. And they did these different rituals and healings. And the things that worked for everybody, and that could be learned by everybody, became the foundation of the mystery school. And this life activation is something that goes way back to that. So it's over 3,500 years old.
Do you know who introduced it? Did it say who was the first? Was it someone from, whatever country, or is it just kind of embedded that the life activation is just one of the rituals or processes that they have in this school?
Yeah, that's interesting. So I've never heard that it's attributed to one person or place, because as you experience, it's really made up of a lot of different steps. So it's 90 minutes of different steps and processes and clearings. So I think it was the collection of, these 10 things worked really great together. Let's call it this.
Yeah.
So the Modern Mystery School opened up to the public in 1997. So there still are 7 mystery schools on the planet. This is the only one that's open to the public. And I often talk about it. If people have ever seen the Marvel movie Doctor Strange, he goes to Tibet. He goes to a mystery school, and I love it because in that movie, I recognize book titles, I recognize symbols. I'm like, oh my god, I did that. Oh, I've read that book, and so it's this great mix of reality and mythology. But the Modern Mystery School is the only one that's open to the public. For a brief period, the one in England was open to the public. It was known as the Golden Dawn. You might have heard that term.
Mm-hmm.
So that was a mystery school. And how they used to operate was watching from the shadows and watching someone that showed really interest and spark, and they'd be invited in kind of in secret to come join the lineage and be initiated and get handed down this esoteric wisdom and healings and how life works and the magic of the universe and all that. That's the kind of stuff I had heard growing up. So when I discovered that someone said, there is one and it's open and you can be part of it, I'm like, oh, okay, I'm in. Again, I liked trying new things. So the life activation is required. And then there's a weekend called Empower Thyself. That's 2 long days where you learn these fantastic ancient rituals to empower you to create a better life. These are rituals that I use multiple times a day since 2016. The times I decide, I'm not so sure about this, I'm going to take a break. Those are the times my life and my mood and energy goes down the tubes.
Yeah.
I have had to remind myself and learn that same lesson multiple times, but I keep doing this. I invite people. I'm in training to become a guide, which means I would then teach that weekend and welcome more people into this and teach all the rituals. And it's because it works. Everything I do for clients, everything I try to pass on to other people is something that I tried, I used, had positive experiences of, and share. My closet is full of other certificates, the things I did and took, and that, I didn't get much value. And it just becomes a pile of stuff that I did. It's not something that I recommend. It's not something I still practice with people. But the life activation is, I would say it's the most powerful, first step that I have ever encountered. And plenty of people get life activations and that's it. They don't have to keep going with the mystery school. And certainly I had no idea about how far my path would go, but it all started with that life activation. I'm now walking the healer's path in the mystery school and the ritual master path. One's being a healer and bringing light to the world, and the other is really being a warrior of light. It's really protecting humanity. It's literally fighting evil.
Something I was going to ask you, are there like degrees in this or are there different paths? So it sounds like you said there are like basically 2 paths or 2 tracks that you can take within it.
There are multiple levels of initiation. I don't want to talk much about it because for my path, it was all just noise. And then each time I did something, I was like, oh yeah, I'm supposed to do this. I didn't see 3 steps down. I just knew this class is for me. Oh, I want to get that initiation. So it can go as long as you go. There are classes that have yet to be unveiled. Again, something that took thousands of years to put together. It's not all out in the open. It's not all released to people that are initiates even. And everything is taught as it was back in the day. There's not a book. There's not a video. There's no online classes. It's all in person, word of mouth, teacher to student. It really is the energy.
Yeah, no, it's cool because you mentioned a couple minutes ago, you said you stepped away from it and that's where you kind of fell through, a void a little bit. And I had a guest on who was an actor. He's done a bunch of different things too. He's a magician. He's a photographer. He's an avid skier, all these different things. And he, earlier in his life in New York, had come across, he was interested in mysticism and he'd met a guru in New York that was from India, followed them over to India and really had life-altering experience. But then he came back to New York and he got sucked back into the material things, the drinking, the drugs, the girls, and all that stuff. And he lost what he had. And so he remembers it, but it was, it took quite a discipline and journey to get there. And then you kind of have to stick with it or it can fall apart pretty easily. So I thought it was kind of interesting you said that. It can lead you to the right path, but if you take a detour, that's your free will. That's your choice. You got to get back on the right path, which you've done, which is great.
Right. That really comes down to it. And one of the things that fascinates me about the mystery school is the combination of mystery and history. Now, Jesus Christ in the Bible, he's born and then he kind of goes missing until he's in his 30s again. He shows up as an adult.
Yep.
And the Holy Family fled Jerusalem and went somewhere. And the 3 wise men showed up at his birth. So in mystery school teachings, the 3 wise men were ritual masters from 3 different mystery schools. And when Jesus is not accounted for in the Bible, he's in training at the Tibetan mystery school, and he's in training at the Egyptian mystery school. And then he comes back and he's healing and he's enlightened and he's fully owning his divinity. And the main thing of the mystery school is reminding all humans that they are divine.
Did Jesus, do you think he went down both tracks, the healer and the protector, or was he more the healer, do you think?
Oh, I think both, for sure.
Yeah.
And again, maybe it wasn't 2 tracks then, right? It was kind of before it was created as this lineage. But yeah, no, he was healing, he was doing exorcisms, he was doing teachings, he was writing. So he was doing it all.
Yeah, so let's talk about to the present. A couple of weeks ago, you sent me an email or a message and you said, hey, I'm doing these things called life activations. It would be really good if you could try it. I said, I don't know. I'm unemployed, blah, 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 blah. You said, well, why don't you just come over and we'll try it, right? Which is great. So I did. I went over, and I will tell you, I'm going to hand it over to you to ask me some questions in a minute, but I'll just tee it up. Went over to your house. You got a great house. I met your dog, Scout, and your wife, Lori, who's awesome. Then we went down to the basement, and there was a room there, and you started a 60 to 90-minute ritual, which it's not like you're sitting and doing a reading. You were doing a lot of work, a lot of moving around. You did a lot of work on that. And it was an interesting experience. And I found when I was driving home, I was actually in a really good mood for the first time in a while. I was listening to music and seat dancing to music on the way home, which I usually don't do. So it was just kind of weird and very, very enlightening, and super glad I did it. So thank you. I just thought, why don't you, if you had any questions for me, interviewing me about what the process was like, so our listeners could get an idea of what the experience is.
I would have asked, what do you remember about it, and how did you feel right after it? So you talked about being joyous and singing and enjoying you, and it sounds like you were surprised to feel that good.
Well, I didn't even realize it.
Yeah.
Say that. Yeah. I was halfway through my ride home, like, oh God, I'm kind of giddy, right? I think I told you that in an email too. I was feeling kind of giddy on the way home. Yeah.
And that's why when I encourage people to journal, because it's easy to forget you did anything, because we activated you, Bob. There wasn't some foreign substance put into you. It wasn't like I gave you, here, drink 10 Red Bulls, right? I literally put more light into your physical being. So more of who you truly are can shine through. So that giddy, joyous, dancing in his seat guy, that's your essence. That's you. That's you fully alive. And has that mood lasted? Did you find the next day you were kind of just grumpy and miserable? Like what were the following days like for you?
Well, the following days were like, one was interesting. I had I've been looking for a job, so I had a couple options, and there was one opportunity where I remember having a dream before I woke up that I was really liked one opportunity better, and I missed the interview for this other job, which I was supposed to have that morning. And then I woke up in the morning, and there was a message from the HR person that said, oh, sorry, Bob, the other HR person was on vacation, but we're canceling the meeting with so-and-so because the position has already been filled. And I was kind of actually happy about that, to be honest with you, because it's almost like when I was single and I was on Matchmaker and I started having too many people that I was talking to and interested in dating, and I really was only interested in a couple, and how do you off-ramp someone? I was kind of happy about that. I haven't been doing the journal. I did get a notebook. I haven't. I put it by my bed when I wake up, but for some reason, I told you the day of the life activation that I used to have these weird dreams right before I woke up. So since then, I got a rock salt lamp or whatever, and put that in my room. It used to be downstairs, and I've been sleeping better, and I have less kind of disoriented dreams than I had before. In fact, they're very few. I think that one about missing the interview was the only one I've had in a couple of weeks.
So that missing interview dream kind of manifested. That's the interview that didn't happen.
Yes.
Great. So that level of synchronicity, that's what I kind of mean. Like, life rises to meet you as you have that life activation. Right? There's more light, more energy, the crud in the way of your innate abilities, your purpose, really what you're meant to do is really cleansed away.
Yeah.
So you will experience more synchronicities, more things just going your way. It's tough to acknowledge and accept it if you don't write them all down and keep track of it. And then 3 months from now, you look back like, oh my God, look at all these things that have been going my way. Because it's easy to discount because it's natural.
Yeah. I mean, this isn't a question, but I'll throw this out to you as kind of an experience. Is the first couple weeks after I got laid off, I really went through like shock and trauma. I mean, I was like feeling horrible. I wasn't hungry. I felt horrible. My blood pressure was through the roof. But I had to do things very quickly. I had to get my resume straight. I had to get set up for unemployment. I mean, and that was a hassle because my identity was taken. I had to like re-get that very quickly. And anyways, all this stuff. So it was very stressful. And I just noticed like this week, I'm like, it's almost, I'm kind of glad I'm going through this unemployment thing because I'm getting these opportunities. I've had several more opportunities since the life activation for interviews. And even if there's a job that I say, I feel I should take it, but it's not quite right, and say that. I still had a positive experience where they will still consider me for another position that may be open really soon because they like me so much. So there's some really good stuff that's been coming out of it, and it almost feels natural. I feel, I'm actually starting to get comfortable. I don't want to say I'm comfortable being unemployed, but I'm comfortable in the job seeking role. I have confidence, and I almost appreciate it, this experience, because it's allowing me to re-see myself through others' eyes. I mean, you're at a company for a long time, and they tend to look at you the same way, right? And when you interview and you share your experiences, other people, when they see how you can help them, it reaffirms you and what you've done in your career, and it's kind of nice to be wanted.
I don't want to speak for you, so I'll speak about other clients that when I've done this for someone that was in a job hunt or recently became unemployed, they had the confidence to say no to the jobs they knew weren't right.
Yeah, that's what I did.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. Beautiful. I didn't want to put words into your mouth, but it sounded like that's what I felt like I was hearing. Because again, there is an ideal position, but often it's fear that makes us settle and grasp and reach for the first thing. And I was laid off once too in my life, and I was like, "Oh my God, it's the end of the world. What am I going to do?" But like, no, it's just one set of circumstances. And if you let yourself go with the flow to the next ideal position for you, is going to come sooner rather than later, and it's going to feel right. You're going to just have that's the one. And it might be it's the people that say they're going to, like, how cool is it? How good does it feel to have someone say, "You're not right for this job, but we like you so much, we're going to try to create something just so we can hire you."
Yeah, not exactly that, but yes, within that same lane swimming in where, hey, you're right. We really wanted you for this job, but you're actually right. And we do have some other recs that will be open, downstream. And I think you might be a good fit for us. And it's like, yeah, definitely. Please keep me in the pipeline. So that was good. And that to me was the best outcome possible.
Beautiful. Yeah. That's a great way of putting it. Life activation sets you up for the best outcome possible for weeks, for months, for years.
It sneaks up on you, Andy. Like it just kind of unfolds and happens.
Yeah. So I'll touch base. I'll reach out 1 month, 3 months, even 6 months after a life activation. And I love when people will describe all these great things and then say, "But I didn't notice anything from the activation." And I just laugh and smile like, "Okay, great." But because again, it's more synchronicities happen. They feel natural because because you're more in your nature.
Yeah, and you forget very quickly the gunk that you came, the yoke of depression or trauma from losing your job or whatever that you let go of just a couple weeks ago. It becomes more natural how you're feeling today, and you forget the bad stuff.
Yeah.
It's my experience. I don't know if that's yours or other clients as well.
Totally. For me, I always call that emotional tunnel vision. When I'm miserable, I think I'm always going to be miserable. And when everything's great, I'm like, things have always been great.
Yeah. What other questions, like would you like to ask me after having the experience that you think could give our listeners a good idea of? There's one thing, without going into detail, you clear me through a lot of work. You then bring light into me, and then you check my chakras, and you found some interesting stuff in my chakras. Do you remember that at all, or some of those?
They weren't necessarily your chakras. It doesn't really matter. I just don't want people to think that that's something. So it's a different aspect of you. The life activation I mentioned before, I'm literally putting light into you, and there are 12 sections of your energetic structure that I put light into.
Okay.
And then I do a quick reading. And for each of these 12 spots, there can be something that wants to be released. I don't know if you were calling up, but I say, like, you don't need to remember this. You don't have to make meaning of this. This is more something that your soul wants to release this word, this image, this phrase, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And sometimes people really resonate. It has a lot of meaning for them. And sometimes what the hell did egg salad mean? Why did you say that? And I'm like, I don't know.
It's funny. Well, the first thing you said was spaghetti and meatballs, which is my mother's favorite food. And my older brother, who's not religious or believes in stuff, he does put out every time for her birthday, which is August 22nd coming up, he puts out a plate of spaghetti and meatballs for her, Yeah. And then I remember one time he saw 2 flowers outside a window, and he had never seen them before, never planted them, and there were no others like that, outside a window one time. Took him back, but he's still a skeptic, but it was really interesting. And there were others you said, there was a fancy car. I know I don't have a fancy car, but I remember my dad seeing a picture from the 1940s. My parents, of course, my dad's 94 now. My mother's been passed. She died in her mid-80s. But they had, that classic old-fashioned car that would go up on its back wheels. There was a picture of them in that at one point. You mentioned a UFO. You saw a flying saucer. And not that I think I've been an abductee, but there was one experience I had when I talked to another guest about shadow people, where when I was 4, one of my earliest memories, I was in a room with my siblings, my brothers, and I woke up in the middle of the night and I saw this kind of dark figure over me, and I thought it was a burglar. So I just closed my eyes. And then next thing I know, it's the next morning. And I told my father, I said, Dad, did you take care of that person that was in my room? And I remember him looking at my mother really weird, like they're just brushing it off, and I never really brought it up again. And so once in a while, because when I talked to the guy about shadow people, he mentioned experience to him when he was young. I thought, God, was that? Was it? And then I didn't, who knows? Could be a UFO. I don't know. And then you mentioned the last thing, because obviously I'm involved in the paranormal. I have not done a lot of experimentation, but you saw a well, kind of like a deep well, almost like from The Ring. I think you saw, even though it was dark going down there, you got very emotional. I don't remember, there was this sense of warmth and love protecting me around that well.
Yeah. So that I do remember, because that is not the normal experience. It's tough to be sure because I do forget this aspect, but I think that was the first time that I was moved to tears in relaying what I was getting for someone for that portion of the activation. And so in my own notes, I wrote down, I have chills and tears conveying the angelic protection that Bob has.
Oh, that's so great, because I'm such an introvert, and I don't think I have, I'll put a post on Facebook and I'll have like maybe 5 or 10, and other people will have 200. I'm like, sometimes you feel kind of alone in the world. So it was very, very nice to hear that I have that protection spiritually around me. So that was great to hear.
And I just got to say to that comment, comparison is the thief of joy. Right? Be you, brother.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love those 10 likes. And don't worry about the non-likes.
Hey, there you go. How do people contact you for a life activation, one? And what are some of the follow-up steps that they should do?
I'm not going to get into the follow-up steps because they don't matter if you don't do it. You got to do the first step. But I mean, I've told you that there's no intricate follow-up. There's no special aftercare. I recommend journaling so you notice the changes. But the best way to find out more is to visit my website, theandygrant.com. And you'll see life activation in the menu. You can watch the pre-activation, post-activation videos I share my own experience. I believe there's at least 5 different testimonials from people that have received this. I can't say enough about it. And what I say, again, it doesn't matter because it's your experience. I have not had a single client just have no experience. People that have no idea what energy work is, that have no experience with anything, say, wow, I feel energy surging through my body. I guarantee that is not a sentence they had ever conceived of saying before. So it's all about your experience. So it works for everybody, but what it does is very unique. So I can't tell you you'll be hopping and skipping and you'll have a new job in a week and you'll cook spaghetti for your mom and really feel connected to her, or you'll have a well full of angel. Like that's all the unique stuff. It's activating your spiritual DNA. It's connecting you with your higher self more. It's allowing your innate gifts and talents to finally be seen and flourish instead of squashed, denied, and hidden.
So I guess maybe a better question might have been, what type of person and what type of life situation should consider a life activation?
If you have ever felt called to more and just have no idea what that more means, that's a great signifier that a life activation is for you.
Yeah, I think also if you're feeling stuck.
Yep.
I mean, a lot of times in my life, I've felt like I've had to do stuff to kind of just help the situation, help my life, be a provider or whatever, but not really help me. And when I even have my own downtime, I have a hard time finding stuff I love to do. You're very good at that, actually. You're very good about going on roller coaster rides or taking trips to different places with Lori or going to great food or seeing a movie. I kind of have a hard time when I have time to myself figuring out, other than podcasting or making a movie, what would be a fun thing that I would just love. So I like that you do that. I hope to learn more of that.
Yeah, I anticipate you discovering more of that in the coming weeks and months. But it's getting rid of those limiting beliefs and habitual thought patterns that dim you. You kind of describe this subdued version of you, but then you also can share that your giddiness and your excitement and your interest. And it's really letting that shift happen, and it'll happen naturally because it's who you are. So I sense it in you more. Like you feel more alive talking to you right now than in the past to me.
Let's talk about Real Men Feel for a little bit, if you don't mind. You have
Yep.
a very long-running podcast. You talked about how it evolved. Tell us about it, because tell us because you've gotten some very nice compliments from wives that thank you that their husband listened to it.
Yeah. Many girlfriends and wives have discovered it and then told their men to listen.
Yeah, it's funny.
Yeah, it's for men, but it's also for women who love men. And women also tell me that they, it's helped them. They have the insights too, because more than man or woman, we are all human beings. So we start with the same stuff. We're made of the same substance. And Real Men Feel, it exists to remind men that they're human. And all human beings have a full range of emotions. And there aren't some emotions that are for women and some are for men. But society tells us that's the way it is. So I encourage men to open up, to feel their emotions, to express them. And that's why some of the most powerful shows I've done have been when I have been horribly depressed, suicidal, and I share that. And I share that to show that, yep, I feel this low, I feel this horrible, yet I'm still here.
Yeah.
And if you tune in a month, I will be this buoyant, positive, beaming guy full of energy. And they're both me. I was depressed and suicidal from a really young age. 8 years old, I can remember being suicidal that early. And the memory isn't like it was shocking. It wasn't the first time, but it's just the earliest I can remember it. So I thought I was broken. I thought I was different. I thought I was hopeless and helpless. None of that is true. And I don't believe it is true for any single human being out there. But men, and speaking as a man, I'm dumb. I'm often a really slow learner when it comes to who I am, what I'm capable of, that I'm more than just this meat suit, that I can do more things than just be angry and refuse to ask for directions. There's a lot more to us. And I see some of my skill sets that I did not recognize as skill sets earlier, and my authenticity, my vulnerability. So I model what I encourage men to be willing to be, which is open and expressive and share their life, because I cannot overshare. The times I think I go too far, I hear from someone, I'm going to get emotional talking about this. I have lost count how many guys have written to me saying, I was planning my death. I was planning to die, and your show popped up. Like, I wasn't even looking for it. I don't know how I ended up listening to this, and thank you.
Yeah.
And that's why when I was recently depressed at the beginning of this year, I withdrew from everything. I would not read emails. Like, don't you dare show me a reminder of how inspirational or powerful or helpful I am. I don't want to know any of that. I had to get sick and tired of my own misery before I could take another positive step.
Was there a trigger? Are there triggers like bring you into depression and take you out of it in your experience?
For me, and this would be interesting. We've been talking about the mystery school and all these positive things to it. The trigger for me last November, I did my deepest training yet with the mystery school. I was training to be a guide. It was as far as I could go down the healer's path. And when great new light and energy comes in, the pendulum swings the other way. And I rode that pendulum hard.
Yeah.
More from habit than reason. But all my old, I'm not good enough. I can't do this. Who am I to think I can help anybody? This is all nonsense. But part of me knew that was all lies.
Yeah.
So I withdrew from all social media. Like I stopped. If a client booked a time, I was like, I have to talk to them. But if someone emailed me, hey, Andy, I'd like to work with you, I ignored that. So I ignored everything so I could lie to myself that I didn't matter. None of my work mattered. I've never had a positive impact on anyone. So that was the darkness that I was in. And it was by habitual choice. Now I feel as phenomenal now as I thought I would back then. But I had to go through my own pendulum swing. I had to go back into my darkness to realize, yeah, this isn't you anymore.
It's almost like, Andy, when totally different situation, but you're very comfortable in your job like I was. You think you've done good and you have a lot of connections. And then one day you're on a call and there's a third person on the call in your weekly meeting with your manager. And then they tell you to shut off the computer and don't talk to anybody. And you're kind of alone. So and then all of a sudden you start getting this imposter syndrome where, God, did I think I was better than I was? Am I really not very good? Am I going to get a job again? It's almost like, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you took that training and you were ready to take this next great step, and something in you triggered doubt to stop you from getting there, which you've come out of with guns blazing, thank God, recently. Everybody gets that, right? That imposter syndrome. Am I really this person that I'm projecting to the world? Or am I a fraud? Or what is this, And if I am a fraud, God, I don't like myself for doing that.
There's a polarity to everything. Like, I can't feel great and love life without ever experiencing, wow, I think everything sucks and I hate life. Right?
Yeah.
But I used to think that.
Yeah.
I thought happy, normal people were really like static and flat at this happy level. I thought Ned Flanders was like actual human beings, just oakley dokley, everything's great. And you just always lived there, But it's not. And you mentioned roller coasters. Like, life is a roller coaster. And when you can just kind of when I can witness my ups and downs, that they're fun, they're the flow, it's life. But when I think that first hill, as it's plummeting to the bottom, if I think that's the end of life, like all I am is plummeting down into the abyss, that's when I make things worse than they are.
Yeah, and it's always hard to get out of stuff like that. Like, say you're in the habit of writing a screenplay, you're a screenwriter, and you only get to write at 11 o'clock at night. You bring yourself over to your computer from 11 to 1 every night. You take a week off, it's hard to get back to that. So it's just kind of it's a muscle. You got to re-exercise and reuse. So I remember after my life activation, I think I told you, I hope you heard, I said, God, Andy, you're back. I think I clapped you on the back because I really felt your positive energy, and you were back where even stronger than before. I think, the depression, you had come back, and you with conviction and with real confidence. And it was really great to be a part of it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, for whatever reason, I had to hit bottom and bounce back hard. And maybe that's my path forever. But, I hope I learned that I can rebound in a week, not 8 months.
Yeah, maybe you're like cryptocurrency. You go really high, then you go down, but it's not a dead cat bounce. You'll never go below that again. You'll come up again even higher, So let's hope it's that for you, which I think it will be, quite frankly, because you got too much to offer.
Yeah, I'm Bitcoin with a soul.
That's right. Hey, you grew up in Leominster, Massachusetts, which
Correct.
is best known as the birthplace of Johnny Appleseed.
And plastics.
Yep. And plastic, yep. But it's also home to something called Monsterland. Do you want to, you even interviewed a guy on your show, Ronnie LeBlanc, who wrote a book called Monsterland and had a beer, an IPA called Monsterland at the Wachusett Brewery, I think, or whatever.
Yeah.
But can you want to talk about Monsterland? And was it something you were aware of growing up?
I don't have much to share in that. So I knew of Monsterland, and to me, it was just a place where teenagers went to drink.
Yeah.
So I did not know of any paranormal stories, or if I heard them, I just thought, some kids were high and made up this story. It wasn't until I was an adult that I discovered that there was this rich history of experiences. But yeah, the only times I was at Monsterland, I was drunk. So
yeah.
I have no great experience. I have no reporting.
So maybe those double visions you saw were actually something. You never know, right? So
right.
It's kind of like the mini Bridgewater Triangle. I mean, more people have probably heard of that, but I think there's like Bigfoot and other cryptids and perhaps some UFOs. The Bridgewater Triangle has a lot of weird stuff like murders and satanic cults and things like that. I don't think that's in Monsterland. Around where I live, which is near there, I live in Westminster. Just there's a big ski mountain right down the road. There's a bunch of parks and a lot of hiking and stuff. So there is a lot of wooded areas. So it's not like New Hampshire where most of the state is wooded, but it does have a lot of outdoors type of activity where you could potentially see something, I guess. So who knows?
Like every town has something. I remember visiting a really old, like Revolutionary War and that cemetery in Fitchburg, and being told that, this is haunted and weird things happen here too from kids that grew up in Fitchburg. So
yeah, well, the town right down the street from me is Gardner, and it's got one of the 10 most haunted houses. If you watch like the Travel Channel, it's called the S.K. Pierce Victorian Mansion. Have you ever heard of that?
No, all I know about Gardner is the big chair.
Oh no, it's he was a furniture maker. But yeah, I was actually in my documentary that I made. I did a little on that house there, and they refinished it, and now it's open for tours and stuff. They just put it open to the public. They had a lot of ghost adventures. Everybody's been there to that house, before it opened. But yeah, I actually brought Brad, who Brad Little Frog Hudson there, and I remember I had to pay for it. So I remember downstairs we didn't pick up anything, and I thought, oh God, we're not. But the higher up we went, he started picking up stuff. In one room in particular, he almost started crying. And Brad's a big burly guy, looked kind of like a biker. He was literally had to get out of the room. And then we went down to the basement and there was other stuff. And the people that were there, they actually said, yep, he picked up on stuff that, some people more commonly may know and a lot were lesser known. So he did a really great job there. So yeah, what started off is just like, well, this is the living room, this is the kitchen, okay, great. Once we got higher and higher in there, he really started picking up some stuff, and it turned out to be it was during the day too. It wasn't like an overnight, so it was a very, very good visit. Yeah, we're checking out with you and Lori if you get a chance. Go for a tour there sometime.
Yeah, cool. Yeah.
And right down the street from there in Winchendon, there's another, I think the Murdoch Whitney house. That's a haunted house. It's an Airbnb now. You can stay the night there. So there's a couple locations, and then not too far from Webster, and I think it's Harrisville or Burrisville, Rhode Island, is the Conjuring house, from all the movies. So believe it or not, there's a lot of cool stuff around here. All right, cool. But let's get back to you and your stuff. Let's talk about some of your books that you're an author of several books, and even maybe some of your films if you want to talk about. Tell us about some of your books and where we can get them.
So everything's available on Amazon, where all books live. My most popular book is called Still Here: How to Succeed at Life After Failing at Suicide. And, the impetus behind that was really, I wanted to write down everything I learned as an adult that I wish I had known at 17. Not being told by doctors that there was a cure, that I was just told I was diagnosed as manic depressive at age 13. And the way I was told there was just no hope. I had never met anyone that was suicidal and then later was not suicidal. Like, that's a thing? You can go through this period and it can end? So that's really why I wrote that. I've got a couple books on positive affirmations. I was taking a positive psychology class with Tal Ben-Shahir, and he said, one thing I can tell you is positive affirmations don't work. And affirmations are one of the things that saved my life. I learned them from Louise Hay, and I would combine it with mirror work. And so I really wrote those books as proof that they work. So, and more important than there's hundreds of affirmations in the books, but it's how to use them. And one reason I love positive affirmations is there's no barrier to entry. Like, you don't need to go buy that book. You can just search the internet and find them, but you can say them out loud. You can write them all down in a journal over and over. You can memorize some. You can sing them. You can tap, do EFT while you're doing affirmations. You can look at your own eyes in the mirror and say the affirmations really to you. And I find that when you can't say something, when you're stumbling you can't look in your own eyes and say, I love you. Like, that's the clue. That, like, keep doing that because you're burning through that resistance. If someone is out there and they, I say positive affirmations all the time and they're really easy, well, you need to up your game. Like, they should be challenging. You want statements that, they make you cringe a little. Like, I'm not really worthy of being a millionaire, or I can't travel the world. I can't have my dream job. I can't say that. I'm lying.
Yeah.
So the ones that feel like lies, I invite people, spend more time with that.
I actually did a lot of positive affirmations and meditation to help me through really the trauma. Like, oh God, I'm XY years old. I have child support, and now I'm paying for Cobra. That's like 3 mortgages I'm paying for. I can't last very long at all. I'm never going to get through this, but somehow, some way, getting through it, and probably is going to be brighter on the other side. So that helped me out a lot.
Yeah.
And I think your book's still here. I almost feel like you could write a couple more chapters and update that because you've had some experiences since then. It would be almost so cool to see like a follow-up to that.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, it does not cover me up to today. It ends with me really discovering energy work and just that there's more. I was raised by parents without any sort of religion, which as a young kid, I thought that maybe an atheist. So I thought if I killed myself, that would just the end.
Yeah.
And I wanted everything to end. But I have had too many mystical experiences with holotropic breath work, with psychics and mediums, with healings I've received and given, with ayahuasca. Like, there is so much more to us. We are infinite beings. A core teaching of the mystery school. We are infinite beings. We have never been born, and we can never die. Now, this experience in physical form, this has an end date. But Bob, you will go on and on. You've been before you were here, and you will be after you are here. And that's true for all of us.
Do you mind if I ask you a question? Because I've heard different schools of thought on this. People that do believe we go on, some people were the same person that goes over and over again, kind of in a Groundhog Day. Others think it's reincarnation. What are your thoughts?
I used to believe in reincarnation. Now I don't. There are still so many souls waiting to come here. I believe we have one chance living a physical life on Earth.
Okay.
Before that, though, and what can feel like reincarnation and deja vu is, again, we're spirit. We're here, but we're not living the experience, right? So we're here because otherwise you're this spiritual creature. You're nothing that has had density, and you're just, bang, you're on Earth. You wouldn't know anything. It would be incredibly hard. This is a difficult place without training.
Yeah.
So you're here. Your spiritual self is here watching, and you're a guide before you're here to learn how humans interact. And that's why we progress. That's why that's why life keeps improving. Because before you're here, you're kind of watching and observing. You're like, you might have been helping someone out during the Industrial Revolution, so that when you finally came into physical form, that stuff was done. You could have computers and jet planes and submarines and skyscrapers. Yeah, I kind of think we have one shot at living our life in physical form. That's my current thinking.
That's interesting. I get so many perspectives, like I think you probably do from your podcast too. Let me ask you this: since we have one life to live and we're here now, how do you feel about the year coming up?
I'm excited. I'm stoked. But if you had asked me 3 months ago, I would have said we're all doomed. So,
I had you now, yeah.
Again, you could live every day going, "Oh, I got all these bills to pay. I don't have a job. Everything just sucks. The life is stacked against me." Or you can go, I'm feeling pretty good. Despite my temporary circumstances being challenging, I'm pretty upbeat. Yeah, things are going my way. Life supports me. What's happening is one thing, but our reaction is our choice. That's where free will really shows up. But a lot of people, they go into the slave mentality. They give away their power.
Yeah.
People embrace being the victim. And I used to live this way, so I get it. Because when I'm the victim, nothing's my fault.
It happens to you.
But the only way we change our lives is by taking responsibility. I think I told you kind of the only negative to the life activation. It'll be tougher to tolerate things you know aren't good for you because you're more responsible.
Yeah, it was challenging for me to say no to a job, and then, who knows what'll happen, but potentially something good could come out of that. So great interview as always. Let's just talk about what's next for Andy Grant and where we can follow. I know it's your website, but repeat your website again and what you're doing and what's the best way to schedule a life activation, or are there any other type of services that you can provide that aren't in person, that are virtual?
TheAndyGrant.com. Life activation can only be done in person. I'm in Littleton, Massachusetts. If you want one with me, you would come to my house. You can fill out a contact form. You don't just book them online. I talk to people. I make sure this is good for you. I see how you're doing. I do have one remote healing. In all of the mystery school, there's this one remote healing. It's called Spark of Life, and it is really cool. It's truly made for more physical issues. And anecdotally, I can share that during COVID, during the pandemic, when people were in emergency rooms and on ventilators, all the initiates of the mystery school that had this training that could do the Spark of Life, we would share names with each other and whose relative, whose neighbor, whose friend was in trouble and in the hospital. Everybody that received the Spark of Life went off ventilators and went home.
Wow, that's a great story. Excellent.
Yeah, so it's powerful. So it's really bringing the energy of an ancient Egyptian temple to you. I am bombarding a client with light remotely for an hour. And I usually do it at night because people tend to kind of zone out and just feel all comfy and they want to go to sleep after. But I've also had the rarer client that is so energized, they're up to like 3 a.m. So I tell people that, but like I've done it for people in the morning. I just did one last weekend. The recipient told me that afternoon that they had been meaning and wanting to start working out for 6 months. Without planning to, as soon as the Spark of Life ended, they went and started to work out. And halfway through the workout, they realized, oh my God, is this because of what just happened?
That's great.
Because it feels natural, right? We're beings of light. So any healing that brings more light into you, you're more you.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of what I felt. Even when I do change things, you almost kind of give credit to yourself because it feels like you're doing it, which I guess you are, but you've just been pivoted a little bit.
Yeah, you're more open to synchronicities and your intuition and just, again, it's so many things that we've been told is nonsense somewhere along the way.
I encourage people, I hope they take this show as a testimonial, for how great a life activation is and how it can help people. I mean, it looks like I totally changed my mindset. I have more optimism about finding a job. More opportunities have emerged. So we'll see in a couple weeks, but my ship feels like it's righted.
Yeah.
It's great to see you being you again and being happy and helping others, because that's when the world's a good place. So I really appreciate your time tonight.
Yeah, again, for me to start feeling better, I had to be of service. So doing this for people, it helps me and the person receiving it. And one thing I want to add, I know the worldwide network of people that have this training from the mystery school. So if you reach out to me because you live anywhere and you want me to help you find someone that you can get a life activation wherever you are, I will do that.
Well, that's great. Can't ask for anything more than that. Thank you, Andy. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure, man.
You've been listening to the Afraid of Nothing podcast. Please subscribe and like us on Facebook. Until next time, stay scared.
Hey, you're still here? Great. Then why not listen to another episode? Visit afraidofnothingpodcast.com to peruse all the shows. That's afraidofnothingpodcast.com. And while you're there, click the coffee cup icon to buy me a coffee and leave a review. I'll give you a shout out in an upcoming episode, and the world will know how swell you are.